So I'm a bit late to the party on this, but I still wanted to talk about it because hacked audio reveals what Hillary Clinton really thinks about Bernie Sanders supporters. So we'll go ahead and listen to that, and then I'll share my opinion on it because I have a lot to say, as you all may have guessed.
Some are new to politics completely. They're children of the Great Recession, and they are living in their parents' basement. They feel that they got their education, and the jobs that are available to them are not at all what they envisioned for themselves, and they don't see much of a future. I met with a group of young black millennials today, and one of the young women said, none of us feel like we have the job that we should have gotten out of college, and we don't believe that the job market is going to give us much of a chance. So that is a mindset that is really affecting their politics. And so if you're feeling that you're consigned to, being a barista or, some other job that doesn't pay a lot and doesn't have much of a ladder of opportunity attached to it, then the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could be part of a political revolution is pretty appealing. So I think we all should be really understanding of that, and we should try to do the best we can, not to be, a wet blanket on idealism. You want people to be idealistic, you want them to set big goals, but to take what we can achieve now and try to present them as bigger goals. I mean, getting our country to 100% universal coverage is a big deal. Getting that Affordable Care Act to work better for people, getting the costs down so that people feel that they can afford the care that they now have access to, that's a big deal. Going after infrastructure, manufacturing, combating climate change by setting some big goals like 500 million new solar panels by the end of my first term and enough clean power to power every home in America by the end of my second term, that's a big goal. So what we have to do, and what I'm trying to do, is to make the case that we've got ideals, we've got big goals, but we also believe that the path to progress is one that you just have to get up every day and work on. You have to make it your life's work if you do this full time. You have to make it part of your civic responsibility for others, and just keep making that case. It's not as glamorous, it's not as exciting, it doesn't promise a revolution. I mean, I'm still trying to understand the revolution part, because here's how I think about it. And Senator Sanders sort of alludes to this. In order to have the revolution, first we have to take back the Senate and get to 60 votes. Then we've got to take back the House. And that may require some redistricting in order to get people out of safe Republican seats so they can be competitive again. I think we're already in like year 6 or 7 of a 2-year term. So, those of us who understand this, who've been experienced, who've worked in it, know that it's a false promise. But I don't think you tell idealistic people, particularly young people, that they've bought into a false promise. You try to do the best you can to say, hey, that's his view, that's what he is offering you, but here's another way where actually we can achieve a lot of what we have said starting day one and make a real difference in people's lives. And I tell them all the time, it is important to recognize what's going on in this election. Everybody who's ever been in any election that I'm aware of is quite bewildered, because there is a strain of, on the one hand, a kind of populist, nationalist, xenophobic, discriminatory kind of approach that we hear too much of from the Republican candidates. And on the other side, there's just a deep desire to believe that we can have free college, free health care, that what we've done hasn't gone far enough, and we just need to go as far as Scandinavia, whatever that means. And half the people don't know what it means, but it is something that they deeply feel. So as a friend of mine said the other day, I am occupying from the center left to the center right, and I don't have much company there, because it is difficult when you're running to be president and you understand how hard the job is. I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to tell people things that I know we cannot do. I want to level with the American people to be very clear about the progress I think we can make. Now, it won't surprise any of you to hear me say that I think we can grow the economy, get back to more broad-based, inclusive prosperity. We did it in the 90s. We saw the results of having not only a lot of jobs, but incomes rising.
This isn't surprising. I mean, many of the things she said I already knew and have been speculating about based on facts for months now. So when she says she's a center-left to center-right politician, I've stated this before. She's center-left on social issues and center-right when it comes to economic policies. I'd argue that she's actually just right-wing when it comes to war. So a lot of these things didn't actually surprise me. So let me get to some of the specifics. So when she talked about young people living in parents' basements, and she said if you feel like you got a bad deal, then the idea of a political revolution is pretty appealing. So I think we should be understanding of that. I don't have any problems with that. I didn't take her saying that millennials live in their parents' basements as like a slight. The way that I looked at it is she's kind of talking about the economic situation that we're living in and how we're kind of getting a bad deal. So us wanting some type of political revolution to dramatically reshape the political status quo to get us out of this bad situation is what I want, and I think that she is picking up on that. Here's what I did dislike from this audio. So she stated that she doesn't understand the quote revolution part, and she stated that it's a false promise, and I don't think you tell idealistic people, particularly young people, that they bought into a false promise, implying that Bernie Sanders is making false promises to us. But Hillary, it's not about that. Yes, I'm admittedly idealistic, but that doesn't mean you have permission to talk down to me. But I know that with Bernie Sanders, I wasn't buying into a false promise. With Jill Stein, I know I'm not buying into a false promise. Do I actually believe that Bernie Sanders will get a single-payer healthcare system passed if he were elected? Do I honestly believe that Jill Stein could get her Green New Deal through Congress if she's elected? Probably not, given the political climate that we're living in, because in this country, money equals speech, and those with the most money have the loudest voices. So these health insurance companies, for example, with millions and millions and billions of dollars, just when you look at the industry collectively, obviously they have a vested interest in existing, so they don't want single-payer healthcare to pass, which is why they tried to buy off Hillary Clinton, and they successfully did that by greasing her palms, by allowing her to give these expensive speeches on their behalf. This is why they constantly lobby and contribute to the campaigns of both Democrats and Republicans. So I don't actually believe that anything Bernie Sanders really wants could get through, but here's why his campaign was still important. He would at least be fighting for them, and when you fight for them, you move the needle at least slightly, right? So think about President Obama when he mentioned free college tuition at community colleges. All of a sudden, we're all talking about free college tuition, and the Democratic Party is talking about free college tuition. So when you're the president, you have the bully pulpit that you can use to your advantage to change the way that people think about issues. You can prime them and raise the salience and the level of importance in their head about certain issues. So by Bernie Sanders just fighting for universal healthcare, I think that that is something that can have a profound impact, and maybe not while he's in office, but maybe 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, we might actually get it because people start thinking about it and looking it up and realizing that this is something that is a necessity. So I don't think it's a false promise. We're not being misled. We're just hoping to maybe get the ball rolling. Now, the audience laughed when she implied that Sanders supporters want to, quote, go as far as Scandinavia, whatever that means. Half the people don't know what it means, but it is something they deeply feel. And as a friend of mine said the other day, I'm occupying the center-left and the center-right, and I don't have much company there. And I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to tell people things that I know we cannot do. So, in other words, she's telling us she knows what's best for us. We don't know what we really want. We look at Scandinavia and we see that they actually have a just economic system. They have a prison system that actually works, where they don't treat human beings like animals. They have universal health care. They don't have just gross income inequality. Why is that too much to ask for? The United States doesn't exist in a vacuum. So if there's another country with single-payer healthcare, you're damn right I'm going to believe that that's possible in the United States, because we live on the same planet as other countries that were able to accomplish the things that we want. And again, I know that this isn't going to happen overnight, but we can get the ball rolling by voting for candidates who are at least going to fight for it. And you're not overpromising if you say, I'm going to fight for a single-payer healthcare system. Bernie Sanders, I don't think he ever said, I'm going to get in and we will get single-payer. I don't think I heard him say that once. But what he did reiterate multiple times is that when he gets in office, he's going to fight his ass off for these policies. And he may not be able to get them achieved. But if he's fighting for it, there's value in that, Hillary, and that's what you don't get. So the fact that we have institutions that stifle change from happening at a significant level, like, for example, when it comes to the New Deal that FDR implemented, that's really rare. When it comes to the political revolution on the wrong side that Ronald Reagan waged, that's also rare. So we very rarely have these types of transformative figures that are actually able to implement lots of new policies and reshape the status quo in the country, regardless if it's for the better or worse. Bernie Sanders could have been that individual and set us on a path towards single payer and free college tuition. That's what you don't get. That's why we just don't like your brand of Democrat, Hillary Clinton, because you don't even want to try to fight for things that's difficult. You want to get in office and you want to do just what's politically feasible. So that's telling me that you're willing to compromise before you're even there. I don't want that, because if you say you only want a $12 minimum wage, then when you become president, then maybe we'll only get a $10 minimum wage. And then 20 years later, when we finally raise it again, things will get that much worse. The issue of income inequality will continue to compound. And look, we need substantial change. That's what we need right now to fix the problems in the country. And clearly, you're not willing to fight for it. So I'm not necessarily angry at the fact that she called us basement dwellers, because many of us live with our parents at older ages because we were screwed over. We don't have the same economy that we had when Hillary Clinton was our age. That's not our fault. And I think that she gets it, but what she doesn't understand is that being idealistic and actually dreaming and actually believing that things are possible that we see in other countries that work, that's not crazy. That's not us being naive. That's you not willing to stand up and fight for these things like we want you to do. Hence the reason why millennials aren't enthusiastic about your campaign.